I never cared about her money. People always assume that when a working man marries into wealth, it's for the comfort, the luxury, the escape. But I had no need for escape. I liked my life just fine before I met Evelyn. I poured concrete. I liked the feel of it. Heavy, slow, permanent. I liked seeing something I made still standing 20 years later. No cracks, no shortcuts. We met at a fundraiser. That should have been the first warning. I was subcontracting for a city revitalization project, some fancy cultural center, and her name was on the plaque. Evelyn Holloway, the primary donor. She walked through the construction site in heels that cost more than my truck, pointing at architectural flourishes like she understood what it took to make them stand. She didn't belong there, but she looked at me like I did. It moved quickly. That's how it always starts, doesn't it? Within 6 months, we were married. I moved into her house. No, her mansion. Let's be real. Gated drive. Wine cellar. Rooms with names like parlor and conservatory. I kept my place for a while, said it was for emergency. Truth was, I needed a place that smelled like sweat and oil, not imported lavender. She said she liked that I was grounded, that I reminded her of real people. That was her phrase, like I was some novelty item. By the time our twins were born, I'd convinced myself it didn't matter. 2 boys, Miles and Colton, looked just like her, all cheekbones and sharpness, but they loved me. God, they loved me. Evelyn, not so much. She treated motherhood like a performance. Photo shoots, curated moments, mommy and me brunches, but the actual parenting, that was mine. I did diapers and midnight fevers, and scraped knees. She did Instagram captions and charity galas. It unraveled slowly, no big blow-ups, just distance, like a house settling on weak soil. One day I realized we hadn't touched in weeks, then months. I tried, counseling, weekend getaways. Hell, I even learned how to cook, fancy stuff too, seared scallops, truffle risotto. She said thank you, then ate 3 bites and went back to her wine. And then last October she left. Not with a suitcase. No, that would have been too honest. Instead she moved me out, came home from work to find a legal envelope on the kitchen island. And a note. I think we need space. You can stay at the lake house until this settles. The lake house was 45 minutes away. No cell reception, no neighbors for half a mile. It wasn't space, it was exile. I called her, no answer. Called again, straight to voicemail. I texted, nothing. I drove back to the city that night, heart pounding. Security guard at the gate told me I was no longer authorized for access. I should have lost my mind, should have shouted, fought, but I didn't. I drove away, and then I started documenting everything. Evelyn underestimated me. She thought I'd disappear. She thought I'd go quietly, collect some alimony, maybe beg to see the kids once a month. She forgot who I was. I've worked construction since I was 16. Grew up in a town where you settled fights with fists, or silence. I've had bosses dock my hours, clients cheat me, banks deny me, and I'm still here, still standing. The day after she locked me out, I hired a lawyer, not one of her country club types either. I found a woman named Nadine Garcia, runs her office above a pawn shop, takes no bullshit. She read the papers, looked at me and said, "You're gonna need to get mean." "I don't want a war," I said. "Too late," she said. She already started one. Turns out Evelyn had already filed for full custody, claimed I was emotionally volatile and financially dependent, said I was unfit due to rage issues, even cited an old bar fight from 8 years ago, which was dismissed. She built a story, and I was going to dismantle it, brick by brick. First thing I did was install cameras at the lake house, covered every angle. I started recording everything. Phone calls with the kids, conversations with her, every pickup and drop-off. If I said I'd be there at 4:00, if she showed up late, I logged it. If she cancelled last minute, I documented it. She didn't notice, because she wasn't looking. People like Evelyn think they're too smart to get caught, think they're too polished to get dirty. But I know dirt. I know how to track it. how to I stopped reacting emotionally, started acting strategically. The boys were confused at first. Miles got quiet, Colton acted out, but I kept steady, showed up for every game, every meeting. Teachers started calling me first, coaches too. I didn't talk bad about her. Not once. Not to the boys. Not to anyone. But I was building a case, and then I found out about Andrew. Not from Evelyn, of course not. She'd never admit to cheating. That would tarnish the Holloway name. No, I found out from one day he asked if Mom's new friend was going to move in. Who's her new friend? Andrew. He's always there. Andrew was 32, corporate strategist, wore tailored shirts and suede loafers. He'd been consulting for Evelyn's foundation for 7 months. Pictures of them started surfacing at events. Her hand on his arm. His hand on her waist. The timing lined up a little too perfectly. So I dug. And what I found was gold. I'm not talking about photos. Those were easy. I'm talking about payment. Evelyn had written Andrew's consulting firm over $90,000 in the last year. But there were no reports. No deliverables. Nothing but vague invoices labeled Strategic Impact Advisory. Even better. Some of the payments came from the kids' education trust. She was siphoning from her own children's future to fund her affair. Now I had leverage, and I hadn't even used it yet. I waited 3 weeks before making my move. That's something most people don't understand about revenge. They think it's about rage, about acting fast, striking hard. But real revenge, the kind that matters, is about timing. You wait until your opponent stops looking over their shoulder, until they believe the storm has passed. Then you open the sky. I sent Evelyn an email, short, professional. Subject: financial discrepancies in trust fund. Evelyn, I've come across some irregularities in the disbursements from Miles and Colton's educational trust. Certain payments to Holloway Strategies LLC, an entity I assume is tied to Andrew McCall, require immediate explanation. We'll need to address this in court, unless I receive clarification within 48 hours. Regards, Garrett. I didn't mention the affair. Not directly. I let her imagination do the work. She called within 20 minutes. Garrett, she said, voice tight. This is highly inappropriate. What part? I asked. The money, the boyfriend, or the part where you got caught? She said nothing for a moment. Then she sighed. You wouldn't understand the kind of strategic planning that goes into philanthropic operations. I nearly laughed. You're right, I wouldn't, but I understand theft. And I understand what a judge will think when he sees the withdrawals. You wouldn't do that, not to the boys. I'm not doing anything to the boys. You did that when you started funneling tuition funds into some frat boy consultant's pocket. She hung up. But I knew I'd landed the first punch. The next day I met with Nadine. We amended the custody petition, full physical custody, shared legal for now. We attached the trust fund irregularities and the photos. We didn't accuse her of infidelity. We simply presented evidence of compromised judgment and financial mismanagement. Evelyn tried to counter, of course, hired a big-name attorney from the city, a man with slicked back hair and a face that looked like it had never known a day's work. He argued that I was emotionally reactive, possessive, economically insecure. Nadine destroyed him in deposition, asked why Evelyn had blocked my access to our marital home without due process, asked why her new boyfriend was on the trustee payment ledger, asked why none of her emails mentioned concern for the boys' well-being. Just optics, just money, just control. I sat through every hearing in silence. No outbursts, no theatrics, just notes, dates, receipts, because the most dangerous man in a courtroom isn't the one who yells, it's the one who builds. 2 months in, Evelyn cracked. She filed a motion to settle out of court, full joint custody, alternating weeks with a clause that Andrew could not be present overnight while the children were in her care. She offered to reinstate my access to the marital property and reimburse the trust for the unauthorized expenditures. I declined. Nadine laughed when she saw my response. You sure? She asked. This deal would keep things quiet. Quiet's not what I want, I said. I want precedent. We pushed forward. The next move was to take back my reputation. Evelyn's circle had been whispering words like unstable and resentful and bitter ex, but I had something she didn't: authenticity. I started attending the boys' school events with other dads, volunteering on Saturdays, offering free labor for the school's remodel, just a few hours each weekend, framing, hauling, pouring concrete. It added up. I didn't talk about Evelyn. I didn't need to. I let my actions tell the story. Let them watch me show up. day after day, like I always had. Eventually people started asking questions. Why'd she leave? Didn't you build that foundation from scratch? I heard she's with some consultant now. I didn't answer, I just smiled, shook hands, kept working. Word got around. The tipping point came when I was invited to speak at the school's career day. Me standing next to doctors, lawyers, architects, talking about dirt and steel and pressure-treated wood. I told the kids that building something real takes time, that there's no shortcut to strength. They listened, so did their parents. Evelyn didn't show up that day. I think she knew. The real fracture came from within her own world. Her board removed her as chair of the foundation, citing ongoing scrutiny. Donors backed out. Andrew disappeared last I heard. He moved to Austin to start over. Evelyn started unraveling, tried to win sympathy by crying on social media, claimed she was the victim of a calculated smear campaign. But people weren't buying it anymore. They'd seen the shift. Even her friends were backing away. And through it all I just kept building. Miles and Colton started sleeping better. Their grades went up. They stopped asking why mom was always too busy, because they knew. They saw who was there, and who was. And then one night, rain pouring, boys asleep, Evelyn showed up at the lake house, soaked, shaking, no makeup, no entourage. She stood on the porch and said, "I made a mistake. I didn't move, just looked at her through the screen door. I lost everything," she said. No, I said, "you gave it away." She cried, "But I didn't open the door." She stood in that rain for maybe 5 minutes. I didn't budge, not out of cruelty but clarity, because I knew what she was doing. That wasn't remorse on her face, that was desperation, panic. Her empire was collapsing, and she thought I might offer shelter. She never really wanted me, just the stability I represented. That night she drove away, didn't even text afterward, and I went back to bed, slept better than I had in years. But the storm wasn't over. 3 weeks later, her attorney filed a motion for emergency reconsideration of custody, claimed the boys were experiencing emotional alienation in my care, that I was weaponizing fatherhood. Bullshit. But dangerous. See, the court doesn't care about facts alone. It cares about narratives, optics, patterns. If a mother says the father is turning the kids against her, judges listen, even if they shouldn't. So I shifted tactics, started recording more, not just events, conversations, moments. I'd ask the boys on camera how they were feeling, what they missed about their mom, what they wanted from both parents, not coaching, just listening, and what they said broke me. I just want mom to be there without her phone. She used to bake with us, but now she just says she's tired. Sometimes she says dad's brainwashed us, but I remember when she left. I sent the videos to Nadine. She stared at the screen for a long time. "This might not win you everything," she said, "but it makes your position bulletproof." In court Evelyn tried to cry again, claimed the kids were confused, claimed I was controlling the narrative, but Nadine played those clips. We watched Evelyn's expression change when Colton said, "Dad listens, mom performs." After the hearing, Evelyn's attorney requested a private conference with the judge. 2 hours later, the emergency motion was withdrawn. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile, just packed up my files and drove home. That night I grilled steaks with the boys, let them stay up past their bedtime, watched them fall asleep on the couch during some superhero movie, and I sat there just watching them breathe. That's when it hit me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired of having to fight to prove what I'd always been: a father, a builder, a man who shows up. But there was one more thing I needed to do. I filed a motion for a formal financial audit of the trust and the foundation, not because I wanted the money, but because I wanted the truth recorded, legally and permanently. The audit took 3 months. The findings were brutal. $42,000 unaccounted for across personal expenses, travel and strategic advisory services related to Andrew McCall. Another $20,000 used for promotional campaigns built around Evelyn's personal brand campaigns that used photos of the boys without consent. When confronted, she offered to pay it back. The judge ordered restitution, full amount, scheduled over 6 years. I asked for none of it, had it redirected into a new trust managed by a third-party custodian, money to be used only for the boys. Evelyn would have no access, no control. That was the final nail. She lost her foundation, lost her social standing, lost any narrative that painted her as a victim. But I didn't gloat, because I hadn't done any of this for revenge. I'd done it for clarity, to show my sons that no matter how much someone tries to rewrite history, the truth still matters, actions still matter, and showing up still matters. Last week Miles asked if I ever missed mom. Sometimes, I said,
but not for the reasons you'd think. What do you mean? I miss believing she was someone she never really was. He nodded, didn't ask more. Colton, though, he's always been more direct. Do you still love her? No, I said, but I forgive her. Why? Because I'm tired of carrying her choices. He didn't fully get it. Not yet, but one day he will. And when he does, he'll know how to stand tall in a storm, like his father.
Evelyn faded from public life after that. She kept her name, her mansion, her money, what was left of it. But the circles she used to float through stopped returning her calls. The invitations dried up. Her social currency collapsed. Turns out, reputation isn't built on elegance, it's built on evidence. The boys still saw her, of course. Every other weekend. I never interfered, never blocked her access. That wasn't the game I was playing. But they came back quieter, a little older each time. They stopped asking me to remind them when she'd be picking them up. They started asking me if I'd be home for breakfast. Eventually they stopped calling it Mom's house. They just said Evelyn's. I don't say that with pride. I say it with weight. That kind of shift doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from memory, from kids seeing patterns, from realizing who stays in the room when you're sick, and who sends a check instead. I kept things quiet for a while, focused on the boys, took on smaller jobs, custom workshops, boat docks, outdoor kitchens, work that kept me close to home. I stopped needing to prove anything, until one morning I got a letter, certified mail, legal seal. Inside was a notice from Evelyn's attorneys. She was moving out of state. She wanted to modify the custody arrangement. She wanted to bring the boys with her. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed. Not a big laugh. Not crazy. Just sharp. Short. Because of course she was. Of course she waited until things had cooled down. Until the boys had recentered themselves. Until the chaos she caused had settled into something stable. Now she wanted a new life, with them as accessories. She claimed it was for opportunity. Said the new city had better schools, mentioned a fresh start. I knew what it was. Another man, another name, another escape. So I responded the only way I know how, with fact. I had the school reports, the therapy notes, the letters from teachers. I had statements from coaches, neighbors, doctors, all saying the same thing. These boys are thriving. They feel safe. They have structure. And then I submitted my own letter. 3 pages. No embellishments, just days, times, patterns, proof that she was once again trying to relocate her consequences. I ended it with one line: children aren't relocation packages. The judge didn't even call for a hearing. Motion denied. 2 weeks later, Evelyn texted, just one sentence: I don't even recognize you anymore. I stared at it for a while. Then I wrote back, you never took the time to. She didn't reply. That was the last message I ever got from her. It's been a year now. The boys are taller, stronger. They don't talk about Evelyn much. Not in anger, just absence. Sometimes they ask me about the past, what it was like when I met her, what I thought was going to happen, and I tell them the truth, that people fall for illusions all the time, that sometimes we mistake admiration for love, that it's easy to trust a polished surface when you've spent your whole life in the dirt. But dirt, real dirt, can grow things. Surfaces just reflect light. They nod. They don't always understand, but they will. One night, Miles asked, do you think you'll ever get married again? I told him I don't know, because the truth is, I'm not afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of letting someone else into a life I fought this hard to protect. He said, maybe you don't need anyone else. Maybe, but what I do need, what I've always needed, is clarity, and I finally have that. I know who I am, not the man Evelyn tried to paint in court, not the man she framed in whispers, not the background character in her drama, but the one who stayed when things got hard, the one who rebuilt without applause, the one who taught 2 boys how to be men. That's enough for me. That's everything. This morning I poured concrete alone, just a small slab, for a neighbor. No crew, no noise, just me, the wheelbarrow, and the weight of it all. There's something clean about working with concrete. You get one shot. You mix it, pour it, smooth it. You wait. It doesn't lie. It doesn't shift its story. It doesn't pretend to be anything it's not. Once it sets, it stays. When I finished, I sat on the edge of the slab, wiped my hands, and looked out over the field behind my place. The boys built a makeshift baseball diamond back there. Some afternoons, their friends come over, and the whole place sounds like life again. That field used to be wild, untamed, kind of like me. Now it's leveled, trimmed, cared for. That didn't happen overnight. It took patience, precision, long days, cold mornings, 1,000 little decisions made without fanfare. Revenge is a spark, but rebuilding, that's the real fire. People always ask what I'd do differently if I could go back, and I tell them this: I'd still fall for her, not because she deserved it, but because I needed to learn, needed to see the cracks, needed to understand what happens when you build on an untested foundation. Because now, I know how to reinforce the walls, how to anchor the beams, how to dig until I hit solid earth. And I've taught my sons the same. They won't repeat my mistakes. They'll build stronger, smarter, with eyes open. Last weekend, Colton asked if he could learn how to finish concrete. Said he wanted to help me on a job. I said, only if you're serious. This isn't a show, it's work. He looked me straight in the eye. I know, he said. I want to learn how to build things that last. I handed him the trowel, watched him place his hands just right, watched him smooth the edges, watched him make something real. And in that moment, I knew, the legacy she tried to take from me, it's already been passed down, one line at a time, one choice at a time, one solid foundation at a time. She can keep her name. I've got something better, my sons, and they're built to last.